Hey there, and welcome to this screencast on blood circulation routes. What I'm going to walk you through now are the major pathways that blood flows through the body. And we have, in general, we have the systemic circulation, which actually includes hepatic and includes renal. We'll also look at the coronary, the pulmonary, and a special case of circulation which looks at babies developing and how their circulation routes vary from when they're newborns and to the rest of their life. So let's begin with a look at the most basic three types of circulation: systemic through pulmonary. So if you orient yourself to this picture, the heart in the middle, and the blue or the right side of your heart is pumping to your lungs. And so we call that pumping to and then from your lungs pulmonary circulation. You can see the color change because it's picking up oxygen, turning it to red, and dropping off CO2, which was the blue, quote unquote, blue blood. So pulmonary circulation deals with to and from the lungs. The other circulation pathway is the systemic, and that's the left side of your heart pumping all over your body, whether that's above or below. And it works in just the opposite way. In this case, it brings oxygen to all of your extremities and drops off, picks up CO2, the waste, and brings it back to the right side of your heart. The third type of circulation, obviously, is then the heart muscle itself is supplied with oxygen via the coronary vessels, and so that we call that coronary circulation. Now let's get into a more detailed look at some of the pathways embedded in systemic circulation. And the one we're going to look at first is hepatic portal circulation. Now, this is kind of the same photo I just showed you in just a little bit different format, because you can see up here we have pulmonary circulation, and up here we have systemic circulation in the anterior portion of our body. Systemic is also down here with the lower portion of our body. And we have some areas where the aorta branches off periodically as we go all the way through our body. And the hepatic portal circulation route comes into play immediately after the aorta branches off into the capillaries that are our digestive tract in the small intestines and the stomach. So what happens when all those vessels kind of come together, they don't go straight back to the heart like they do, say, in the kidney circulation. They go to the kidneys, they go through the capillaries, and they go straight to the heart. They actually go through a second capillary bed through the liver, then go back to the heart. So let me show you in a little more detail now what that looks like and why that happens. So in normal circulation, here's what happens. We have the left side of the heart pumping into the aorta. And the aorta branches off in a lot of different areas, but eventually it breaks down into smaller and smaller capillaries. Those capillaries will merge together to form venules and veins, and finally the vena cavas, which will make their way to the right atrium. That's normal circulation. Blood essentially goes through one set of capillaries. Now let's clear all this off and show you hepatic. Two capillary beds. The starting and ending is still the same. We start at the left ventricle, pump into the aorta. We end in the vena cavas, emptying into the right atrium. However, in between, we have two capillaries. So the aorta is going to drop off blood in all the interior organs, like our capillaries, stomach, small intestines, gallbladder, all of those organs. And then if it was normal circulation, it would take this vein, and this vein would go back over here. But that doesn't happen. The liver is blocking that path. So instead, that blood takes a vein called the portal vein, and it goes through the capillary beds found in the liver. And the liver is going to sift through that blood one final time to get as much nutrients and things out of that blood as possible. And then it's going to take a little detour here. It's going to merge all together into the hepatic vein, which will lead us to the inferior vena cava. So that little detour, the portal, the capillary bed, and the hepatic vein then eventually do lead and mix with all the other blood going back to our heart. Now, why does the liver do this? Why does it want to sift through that blood one last time before it goes back to the heart? Well, there's two things. The first thing is that since we just came from the small intestine where all the nutrients are from the food we ate, the liver does this first. The liver takes a lot of extra sugar out of the blood for storage as glycogen. So that's one reason for the second capillary bed. And the second reason is that the liver is the only organ that really detoxifies our blood from alcohol and drugs or other poisonous things. So it wants to make sure it gets all of those things out to be processed before going back to the heart. So that's why we have two capillary beds for that blood. And now on to a much simpler renal systemic circulation pathway, and that's renal. It's really simple. The aorta comes down and it branches off into two arteries here, one for each kidney, called the renal arteries. It's just blood simply going into the kidney. Once it's into the kidney, it'll get filtered. The blood will get cleaned from all the nitrogenous waste that's your blood is carrying that gets picked up from all the dirty, the cells that produce all this waste. But then, once that blood is filtered, it will then go back into main circulation to the inferior vena cava through the renal vein right here and here. And it'll leave the kidneys, go in the IVC, and then go back to the right atrium. So this is a much simpler circulation route that's embedded in systemic circulation. The last circulation route is a little bit different just because it's not always present. It's only present for about 9 months of your life, and that's fetal circulation. It's the unique circulation pathways before your birth. And basically, a lot of the major blood vessels actually get relocated into the placenta through the umbilical cord. Because if you think about it, a baby is not eating food like we ingest food through our mouths. It's not getting oxygen from the air. And it's not removing waste as it normally would. So everything goes through the placenta and the umbilical cord. So there are major arteries and veins that actually make up this umbilical cord, and that's where the exchange of gases occurs. So that leads to the placenta, where the baby gets oxygen and food and gets rid of waste. And in fact, even something like the lungs, those are cut off from regular circulation. The right side of the heart, once it pumps, it actually gets, the blood gets diverted into the left side, just simply because we don't need the pulmonary circulation yet. So there's a few circulation pathways that are altered in the developing fetus. And once that baby is born and exposed to the oxygen in the environment, some of those structures seal off and close off permanently. That's a look at the different circulation routes in our bodies. Thanks for listening.